throughout Chinese history, what people have considered to be beautiful has largely remained the same. Slim, light skin, etc. And to give you an idea of this, in the 17th century, Emperor Zedong had thousands of women brought to his court so he could pick concubines and hopefully a wife. Now, they were tested for a few days on various things. So first of all, height and weight were measured, and then those who were too tall, fat, skinny, whatever, were kicked out. Then they had thorough body exams, which included their hands and a gynecological exam. They were then tested on how they spoke, and then the remaining dozen or so were tested on their intelligence. But the Tang Dynasty stands out in Chinese history as having a strange taste in beauty. Well, strange for China, I should say. And that's because being large was considered to be beautiful. Now, this might be because Emperor Duanzhong's concubine was described as at least buxom. But it was a strange time for fashion in general. This is largely because they had a lot of cultural ties with Central Asia, and a lot of the fashion reflected this. So they wore very tight-fitting clothes, and in fact started wearing very low-cut tops. But future Tang emperors became suspicious of foreign influence in China, so passed laws banning foreign clothes. This meant that the sleeves of people's clothes had to be very wide, and they became so wide that rich people had servants carry them. Plus, they developed elaborate makeup to replace jewellery, and low-cut tops were only allowed by the nobility or dancers hired by the nobility. So being larger could have been a way to show off your social status. But the Tang Dynasty were very strict about clothes in general, and only certain types of people could wear certain colours. For instance, 3rd grade officials wore purple, 5th grade wore red, and 6th grade wore green. Commoners, on the other hand, could wear yellow. But I should say as well, foot binding was still a thing during the Tang Dynasty, and for those who don't know, this is when women just broke their feet in order to have them smaller. And 3 inches is what they aimed for, but nobody really knows where this came from. But there are a lot of legends that it came about because of some concubine who had clubfoot. When the Manchus invaded, they tried to outlaw foot binding because they, like a lot of other ethnicities, never practiced it, and even some Han Chinese like the Hakka never practiced it. But eventually it died out in the late 19th and early 20th century when European and American missionaries started arriving. But there are still some women today who have it. However, the Manchus did bring in the Q hairstyle. That's the long ponytail type thing at the back. And some of the Han Chinese rebelled against this, but the Manchus slaughtered them. And until the 20th century, or at least the late 19th century, removing the Q hairstyle was seen as a sign of treason, and after the 1911 revolution, many people cut their hair as a sign of defiance. Plus, after the 1911 revolution, many men dropped the traditional clothes and wore the Zhongshan suit. Now, this was a type of suit that Sun Yat-sen apparently helped develop, and it was a good mix of Western and Eastern, apparently. But the women still wore a sort of modified version of the Cheongsam, and that is until Mao came to power and he outlawed jewellery, cosmetics, and anything elaborate, basically. So, military uniform became the norm, but there were still a couple oddities. For instance, in 1957, a movie called Soul of the Sea encouraged a lot of teenage boys and young men to wear sailors' uniform, woolen pants, and slick back hair. Plus, because resources were still in scarce supply, military boots weren't worn with the military uniforms. They wore small shoes that looked a bit like Converse, and they were so popular that they were called liberation shoes. There's of course still some strange fashions every now and then in China. For instance, there's face kinis, which I've never seen but I've read reports about, and little sprout hair clips that emerged about a year ago. However, I'm going to focus on face masks because there's catwalks that focus on smog theme, and they always wear face masks. But face masks developed in Japan after the Great Kanto earthquake in the 20s and subsequent pandemics, and the Japanese wore them as a way to not get germs on other people, because these face masks don't prevent airborne diseases reaching you or stop smog reaching you. So there's no real benefit to wearing a face mask in a heavily polluted city. However, it could sort of reflect Chinese traditional medicine. After all, qi, or bad air, is very, very important, so they might wear it to protect against bad air or something, I don't know. But anyway, finally, glasses. Now, I was mistaken because I thought glasses were a fashion style because many young people wear them, and in Beijing there's a whole mall dedicated to glasses, but apparently there's just a sharp increase in people who need glasses because a lot of children spend most of their time indoors, or at least that's what I read.